Welcome back, listener. You sent over this fascinating collection of writings by Jiddu Krishnamurti,
Uh-huh.
and from what we've gathered, you're really interested in his ideas
Yeah.
about truth, self-discovery, and, freedom from the constraints of society,
Yeah.
thought,
Right.
even ourselves.
Yeah.
And we've got a pretty diverse stack here. Early works, personal reflections, dialogues, even some observations on the nature of education.
Interesting.
It's a lot, but I'm definitely ready to dive in.
Me too.
One thing that really jumped out at me right away was Krishnamurti dissolving this organization
Oh, yeah.
that he actually founded. He claimed it was getting in the way of individual truth-seeking.
Right.
And plus, there's this really intriguing story about the devil and organizing truth.
Mm.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's a fascinating starting point,
Yeah.
and it really speaks to one of Krishnamurti's most fundamental ideas. Truth as a pathless land.
Okay.
He believed that truth can't be found through any organized system, belief, or by following any external authority.
So even well-intentioned groups, like the one he disbanded, can become roadblocks
Exactly.
on the path to individual truth.
Exactly. Krishnamurti saw how easily organizations, even those dedicated to spiritual growth,
Yeah.
can turn into crutches, preventing us from doing our own inner work.
Mm.
And you know that story about the devil letting his friend organize truth?
Yeah.
Illustrates this danger perfectly. Like the moment you try to systematize truth, box it in,
Right.
it loses its essence.
Mm.
It becomes dogma rather than a lived experience.
Okay, so no shortcuts, no prepackaged answers.
Hey.
That's definitely a challenge to our usual ways of thinking.
It is.
Another thing that struck me was how Krishnamurti constantly emphasized
Yeah.
self-awareness and our relationship with the environment.
Mm.
Like he saw these two things, who we are and where we are, as being locked in some kind of struggle.
That's a great observation. And it's really at the heart of so much of his work. You see, he saw the self, that sense of I, as primarily a product of our environment,
Okay.
upbringing, culture, all our experiences.
Right.
And this creates inherent tension because that same environment that shapes us
Yeah.
also confines us.
Right.
It's like we're trying to fit into a mold that was never truly ours to begin with.
It's making me think of all those times I've tried to adjust to expectations,
Yeah.
whether it's societal norms or even those self-help methods for, finding happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what Krishnamurti meant by true understanding of our environment? To see through those external influences?
You're spot on.
Okay.
He wasn't advocating for blind rebellion or rejecting everything around us,
Yeah.
but rather for truly seeing the forces that shape our thinking and behavior.
Yep.
That's where the revolution begins. Not just a revolution of ideas, but a revolution of awareness. We
Okay.
start to question,
Yeah.
to examine. And that shift in perception, it changes how we interact with the world, how we
Yeah.
live. It's a profound internal shift that can have very real external consequences.
It's like becoming conscious of the code that's been running in the background of our lives.
Yeah,
And suddenly we have the power to rewrite it.
exactly.
Now, Krishnamurti also had some pretty provocative things to say about self-discipline,
He did.
almost seeing it as denying intelligence.
Right.
That really made me stop and think.
It's a point that often sparks debate.
Yeah.
What he's getting at is the difference between true adjustment,
Okay.
which comes from understanding,
Uh,
and mere conformity,
mhm.
forcing ourselves into pre-established patterns.
Right.
That's not real discipline.
Right.
It's a denial of our own intelligence. We're not questioning why we're conforming, just blindly following the rules.
So it's not about suppressing desires,
No.
but understanding where they come from. Right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm feeling pressure to achieve some societal ideal of success,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just grinding away,
Mm-hmm.
I should be examining why that goal even matters to me. Where did that value come from?
Exactly. It's about conscious, intelligent action instead of blindly following a script.
Yeah.
Krishnamurti gives the example of those methods for achieving fulfillment.
Yeah.
Often, we're just chasing someone else's definition of happiness
Right.
without questioning if it's right for us.
This is making me rethink everything.
Good.
It ties in with his idea of freedom from the past, too, doesn't it?
It does.
If we're always dragging around old baggage, we can't really be present,
Right.
let alone act with true understanding.
Absolutely. Krishnamurti saw the past as a heavy weight that we all carry,
Yeah.
Constantly replaying old hurts, regrets, or even clinging to past glories.
Right.
This keeps us from fully experiencing the now.
Right.
And he argues that when the mind is free from that burden of the past,
Yeah.
we can truly live in the present.
Okay.
And in that presence lies a deeper connection to life.
So it's not just about living in the moment,
Right,
like some feel-good mantra,
Exactly.
but a deeper liberation from the patterns that keep us
Yes.
repeating the same mistakes or chasing the same illusions.
That's a great way to put it. And he believed that this freedom is essential for creativity,
Okay.
for living authentically.
Mhm.
When we're not bound by past conditioning, we
Yeah.
can actually think and act in new, innovative ways.
Right.
And that's where real fulfillment lies.
So letting go of the past is not just about feeling better.
No.
It's about unlocking a deeper potential within ourselves. I'm starting to see how all these ideas connect.
They do.
Now, what about suffering?
Mm.
Krishnamurti didn't seem to offer ways to avoid it,
No.
but rather suggested we need to understand it.
Uh-huh.
That's a pretty radical stance.
It is, and it challenges our usual instinct to run from pain or seek quick fixes.
Yeah.
He saw suffering as arising from a fundamental conflict. The conflict between the self created by our environment and that environment itself. We're constantly trying to reconcile who we think we are with the world around us.
Yeah.
And that friction is where suffering takes root.
So it's not about finding the right solution or escaping the problem,
No.
but diving into the heart of the conflict.
He believed that awareness is the key.
Okay.
It's not about wallowing in suffering, but about shining a light on its root causes. Instead of asking, how do I stop feeling this way?
Right.
He'd encourage us to ask, why am I feeling this way?
Right.
What beliefs, what conditioning, what experiences have led me to this point?
Right.
By bringing those hidden mechanisms to the surface,
Yeah.
we create the possibility of transforming them.
So it's about moving from a reactive mode to a responsive one.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Instead of being tossed around by our emotions, we become more like investigators, trying to understand the source of the discomfort.
That's a brilliant way to frame it.
Okay.
And this understanding, he believed, is the first step towards real change, towards a life that's less driven by suffering and more aligned with our true nature.
Now, shifting gears a bit, Krishnamurti also had some really fascinating things to say about art and creativity.
Yes, he did.
I was particularly struck by his definition of an artist, not just someone with skill,
Right.
but someone who lives harmoniously, their art inseparable from their life.
That's right. He had a very holistic view of creativity.
Yeah.
He saw true artists as people who have achieved a deep integration of mind, emotion, and action. Their art isn't something separate or forced.
Right.
It flows naturally from who they are, a reflection of their inner harmony.
So it's not about technical mastery or producing beautiful objects,
No.
but about a way of being.
Exactly. He believed that true creativity comes from this alignment of mind, emotion, and action. When those three elements are in sync,
Yeah.
our actions become an expression of our deepest understanding, our deepest truths. And that's where real art, real innovation, real progress comes from.
Okay, that's a pretty high bar.
It is.
For artists
Yeah.
and for anyone who wants to live a truly creative life.
Yeah.
But it makes sense if you connect it to his ideas about freedom from the past and understanding our environment.
You're making a very insightful connection.
Yeah.
It's all about this movement from reacting to responding,
Right.
from being driven by unconscious patterns to acting with awareness and intention.
Right.
And that applies not just to creating art,
Yeah.
but to every aspect of our lives.
It's like we're all potential artists, creators of our own experience, shaping our reality through our thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Yeah.
Now, Krishnamurti didn't shy away from darker topics either.
No, he didn't.
His exploration of violence in particular was pretty intense.
It was.
He didn't see it as something external,
Right.
but something that starts within us.
He used some powerful imagery when discussing violence, talking about how the seeds of it are sown in our own hearts and minds.
Right.
He didn't let us off the hook by blaming external forces. He challenged us to look within, to examine our own role in perpetuating violence.
It sounds like a call for radical self-responsibility, almost like he's saying,
Yeah.
we're all complicit in the violence that exists in the world.
In a way, yes.
That's a pretty tough pill to swallow.
It is, but he didn't present this idea in a blaming way.
Okay.
Instead, he invited us to look at the fear, greed, and desire for control within ourselves, seeing those as the roots of violence.
Right.
not just on a personal level,
Yeah.
but on a societal one, too.
So before we can change the world,
Yeah.
we have to change ourselves.
He believes so.
And this brings us to one of the most fundamental themes in Krishnamurti's work, love.
Ah, yes.
It seems like he approached love in a very unconventional way, almost deconstructing it to reveal its true essence.
Yes. He really took apart those common misconceptions about love, focusing on what it is not,
Right.
rather than offering a neat definition. He'd say things like fear is not love, dependence is not love, jealousy is not love. You know, he was stripping away all that baggage, all those conditions we place on love, to point us towards something much deeper and more authentic.
It's like he was clearing the ground, so to speak, so that something real and true could take root. But he didn't leave us hanging entirely, did he?
No, he didn't.
I remember him drawing some profound connections between love, nature, and the end of violence.
You're right. He saw a deep connection between our capacity for love and our relationship with nature. For example, he talked about the slaughter of whales, pointing to our disconnect from nature as allowing such cruelty. It's like we've forgotten our interconnectedness with all living beings. And this forgetting, this sense of separation, fuels violence in all its forms.
He seemed to believe that by reconnecting with nature,
Yes.
by cultivating reverence for all life, we start healing that fragmentation within ourselves and in the world.
Exactly.
It's a powerful idea, and I think it leads beautifully into the next section, where we can explore his thoughts on the future of mankind and the role of technology.
Sounds good.
But before we do, what are your thoughts on how all these ideas we've talked about so far relate to you, listener?
More, what's standing out for you?
What's capturing your attention?
We'd love to know as we continue our exploration.
Yeah.
We'd love to know what you're thinking about.
Yeah, let us know. So we've been exploring some of these big ideas from Krishnamurti.
Yeah.
Truth, self-awareness, the trap of self-discipline, the challenge of understanding our environment. And he urges us to examine the forces that shape us, both internal and external.
Right.
Now, listener, you shared some sources with us that touch on Krishnamurti's thoughts about the future of mankind,
Okay.
particularly in relation to technology and entertainment. And I found this particularly relevant today,
Yeah.
even more so than when he was writing.
It's fascinating how prescient his observations were. Even back then, he was sounding the alarm about the potential for technology and entertainment to become forms of escape, distractions from the real work of self-discovery and living a meaningful life.
Right.
He noticed how children especially were bombarded with stimuli, passively consuming information and entertainment.
I'm reminded of that quote where he talks about how it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
Right.
Are we creating a world
Yeah.
where being constantly plugged in, constantly entertained becomes the norm,
Yeah.
and true engagement with life kind of fades away?
He was deeply concerned about that.
Yeah.
He saw it as a form of conditioning that dulls our sensitivity, our ability to think critically and to engage with the world in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
He worried that instead of fostering creativity and self-expression, we were creating a generation of passive consumers.
I feel like I'm constantly battling that in my own life.
Yeah.
That urge to just zone out with mindless entertainment versus really being present, engaging with the world, with my work, with the people around me.
Absolutely.
Did Krishnamurti offer any guidance on how to navigate this increasingly digitized, overstimulated world?
Well, he wasn't anti-technology,
Okay.
but he urged us to be mindful of how we use it.
Right.
It's about using technology as a tool, not letting it use us.
Okay.
It's about finding a balance between the virtual world and the real world, between passive consumption and active creation.
Right.
He believed that this balance is essential for preserving our humanity, our creativity, and our capacity for connection.
This makes me think of his emphasis on silence and stillness.
Yes.
In a world that's getting louder and more chaotic,
Right.
those qualities seem, more important than ever.
Absolutely. He saw silence as crucial for true understanding.
Yeah.
And he wasn't just talking about literal silence,
Right.
but about creating a space in our minds, quieting that constant chatter of thoughts so we can connect with a deeper wisdom within ourselves.
It's like hitting the pause button on the constant stream of information and stimulation.
Yeah.
So we can actually hear ourselves think, feel, and be.
That's it.
And maybe in that silence, we can start to hear something deeper,
Right.
something beyond the noise of the world.
You're right. That's a beautiful way to put it. And this deeper awareness, this connection to something beyond ourselves,
Yeah.
was something that Krishnamurti explored in many different ways throughout his teachings. He
Right.
talked about it as the sacred, as a direct experience of a reality
Right.
beyond our everyday perceptions.
Okay, so the sacred not in a religious sense, but more as a sense of awe and wonder.
Exactly.
A deep connection to something larger than ourselves.
Exactly. He described it as a feeling that arises when the mind becomes still and receptive, when we let go of our preconceived notions and simply observe the world with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
And he believed that this experience of the sacred is available to anyone, not just those following a particular spiritual path.
He often used nature as an example, describing those moments of profound stillness and beauty.
Right.
When walking in the woods or simply observing the stars at night.
Yes, he saw nature as a gateway to this deeper reality, a mirror reflecting back to us the peace and wholeness that we're seeking.
It's almost like nature becomes a meditation in itself.
It is.
A way of quieting the mind and opening ourselves to a deeper experience of life. Now, all of this talk about silencing the mind and letting go of our preconceived notions.
Yeah.
It seems to tie in with Krishnamurti's idea of truth as a pathless land.
Absolutely. He constantly emphasized that truth cannot be found through any organized system, belief, or external authority.
Right.
He saw the mind, with its conditioning, beliefs, and desires, as the biggest obstacle to perceiving truth.
It's a radical idea, isn't it?
It is.
To suggest that all the structures we've created to understand the world, all the religions, philosophies, and ideologies are actually pointing us away from the truth. It's almost like saying we need to unlearn everything we've been taught in order to really see.
It is a radical proposition, and it can feel daunting.
Yeah.
But he believed that it's only when we're willing to let go of those preconceived notions, those fixed beliefs, that we can truly experience truth directly.
So how do we do that? How do we let go of all that mental baggage and approach truth with a mind that's open and unconditioned?
He pointed to self-knowledge as the key. The process of becoming aware of how our own minds work, how our thoughts, feelings, and reactions are shaped by our conditioning, beliefs, and desires. He urged us to observe those patterns without judgment, to see how they're filtering our perception of reality.
It's like cleaning the lens of our perception, so to speak.
Yes.
So we can see the world more clearly.
Exactly. And through that process of self-observation, he believed we can begin to loosen the grip of our conditioning and to create space for a more direct experience of truth.
This makes me think about the concept of dissolving the image, something you mentioned earlier.
Right.
It seems like that idea is closely tied to this process of letting go of our preconceived notions.
Absolutely.
And experiencing truth directly.
You're absolutely right. Krishnamurti believed that the image we create of ourselves, the story we tell ourselves about who we are, is a major obstacle to experiencing truth.
So we're not just talking about our physical appearance, but about our entire sense of self.
That's right.
All the roles we play,
Yeah.
the labels we identify with, the beliefs we hold about ourselves.
Yes, it's all of that. And he believed that this image is often based on our past experiences, expectations, and fears. We cling to it for security, for a sense of identity, but it also creates a barrier between us and the present moment. Between us and a direct experience of reality.
It's like we're living in a world of our own making.
Exactly.
A world filtered through the lens of this self-image. And we're missing out on the richness and complexity of the actual world.
He saw it as a source of suffering.
Right.
Because we're constantly trying to live up to this image to make it real.
Yeah.
We're striving, seeking validation, and never quite feeling complete.
So what's the solution? How do we break free from this self-imposed prison of the image?
Yeah.
It sounds almost impossible to just let go of who we think we are.
It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
But Krishnamurti offered some guidance. He encouraged us to question this image, to see its illusory nature, and to gradually let go of our attachment to it.
Okay.
He believed that as we become more aware of how this image is operating in our lives, we can start to detach from it and to experience a deeper, more authentic sense of self.
It sounds like a process.
It is.
A journey of self-discovery, not a quick fix.
Right.
Now, I'm curious, listener.
Yeah.
Are you finding this idea of dissolving the image resonating with you?
Yeah.
Does it feel liberating, scary, or both?
Yes, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. It's a concept that can be challenging. but also incredibly freeing. It's about recognizing that who we truly are is much vaster and more expansive than any image we could ever create.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground. From truth as a pathless land to dissolving the image of ourselves. Krishnamurti he challenges us to think differently.
He does.
What really resonated with you, listener? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, we'd love to know.
Now, one of the things that stood out to me in the materials you sent was his perspective on education.
Oh, interesting.
It's not just about schools and textbooks, right?
No.
It's about a fundamental shift in how we learn and grow throughout our lives, really.
He was very passionate about education,
Yeah.
but he had a very different vision from what we often see in traditional systems.
Yeah.
He wasn't interested in rote learning or conformity, but in fostering critical thinking, creativity, and self-awareness. You know, he saw education as a process of awakening the intelligence that lies within each individual, not about stuffing our minds with information.
Okay, so not just accumulating knowledge, but cultivating wisdom.
Exactly.
I like that. And he was pretty critical of traditional education, wasn't he?
He was.
For focusing too much on competition and achieving external goals. Fitting into predefined molds.
Yeah. He believed that this approach really stifled creativity and discouraged students from questioning and exploring, discovering their own unique passions and talents.
So what did he propose instead? What did he see as the purpose of true education?
For Krishnamurti, true education wasn't just about preparing students for a job or a career, but about preparing them for life, for becoming fully human, for contributing to the well-being of society in a meaningful way. You know, he envisioned schools as spaces where students feel safe to explore, to question, to express themselves freely, to learn through direct experience, not just through books and lectures.
It sounds like he was advocating for a much more holistic approach to education.
Yes.
One that nurtures the whole person, intellectual, emotional, ethical, and spiritual.
You're absolutely right. He believed that true education is not about molding students into something they're not. But about helping them discover who they truly are and to live authentically in the world.
And this vision of education, it's not just for children, is it?
No, absolutely not.
It's something that we can all embrace throughout our lives, really. It's about staying curious, staying open, continuing to learn and grow, regardless of our age or accomplishments.
He was a lifelong learner himself. Constantly questioning, exploring, and refining his understanding. He believed that this ongoing process of learning and discovery is essential for staying awake to life, preventing our minds from becoming stagnant or rigid.
It's about staying young at heart, in a way. Maintaining that childlike sense of wonder and curiosity.
Exactly. He often talked about the importance of approaching life with a sense of openness and awe, like a child exploring the world for the first time. You know, he believed that this childlike wonder is essential for true learning and growth.
That's beautiful. Well, listener, we've explored some really profound ideas from Jiddu Krishnamurti, challenging us to reconsider truth, self-discovery, and freedom. He encourages us to question everything. To observe ourselves and our environment. To let go of limiting beliefs, and ultimately to embrace the present moment with awareness and compassion.
That's it.
You know, if this deep dive sparked your curiosity, I encourage you to explore more of his work.
Yeah, me too.
There's so much out there waiting to be discovered.
Absolutely.
So keep questioning, keep exploring, and as always, happy discovering.
Happy discovery.